Release from guilt is the ego's whole undoing. This is huge. The only thing that is creating guilt in your life is the ego. That's it. It's the game. It's the game. I always say when you wake up, you understand the game that's been going on here. And the game that's going on here is that the ego is trying to keep you in the wheel of suffering, as the Buddha says. Keep you in that constant search of, I'm not good enough, something's wrong, something's wrong. Because if you knew that you are the light of the world, that you are a perfect child of God, the ego won't have a job. The ego will not have a job because the ego is literally, he says in A Course in Miracles, do not be deceived. The ego is trying to kill you. All right, everyone, take a deep breath. So today we're going to talk about guilt. We're going to talk about guilt. Now, in A Course in Miracles, guilt comes up quite often. And it says in the Course in Miracles, this is a paraphrase. It says, two of the most detrimental things the ego can do for you in your experience in this world is guilt and sacrifice. Guilt and sacrifice are two of the things that keep you and I and everyone from remembering our connection with God, with Source, and with love, right? So guilt is a big topic. It's a huge topic. And I think that most of you would agree that when you feel guilt, when you have guilt thrust upon you, first of all, nothing can be thrust upon you unless you already have it inside you. You are asleep. You're in the dark. You're in fear. You're in insanity. You're in judgment, right? Same with sacrifice. Sacrifice is the same thing, and it keeps you away from your remembrance of your connection with God. Remember, A Course in Miracles has one goal and one goal only, and that is your true inner peace. Your true inner peace. Not a laying on top of peace, not another belief that's another belief about peace. It is attempting to help you to connect with the peace that is already here. Take a deep breath. So, at first I was going to read something we're on, if you have your Course in Miracles, we're on chapter 13, section 9. Chapter 13, section 9, we'll do a little bit from number 10 also. Number 10. Okay? All right. So I have different things kind of sprinkled around here. I do want to say one thing. I want to say one thing really quickly. Is that one of my students asked something in our circle this weekend. And if you're new to a course, let me explain this. If you're new to A Course in Miracles, you're going to be hearing this one way. If you're a student of A Course in Miracles and if you've been doing the work for a while, meaning you're doing the daily lessons and studying the text, that is a student of A Course in Miracles, for you, it's a very different situation because you're actually going through the meticulously put together mind process that a lot of people are not doing. You might just be like, well, I'm interested in something. So I'm speaking in these broadcasts in a way that can be applied to both. But I know this sounds complicated, but I want you to understand this. What you're getting in these broadcasts, because they're only 20 minutes or something, whatever, you're getting an overview, and when you're a student of A Course in Miracles, you're asked to literally apply it to your life daily, hourly, second by second. That's a very different thing than learning a principle. Does that make sense? So if I'm teaching you this here, the students that are doing the work are going to get it a certain way, and the other people that aren't students, or maybe will never be students, and that's okay, are going to get it in a different way. Capiche? Capiche. Okay. All right. So let's start from the beginning. This is called the cloud of guilt. The cloud of guilt. Guilt remains the only thing that hides the Father. For guilt is the attack upon his Son. The guilty always condemn, and having done so, they will still condemn, linking the future to the past, as is the ego's law. Okay, so here we go. Guilt remains the only thing that hides the Father. That's what I just said. He also says sacrifice does this too. But anyway, for guilt is the attack upon his Son. So guilt is the attack upon his Son, meaning you, I, anybody, is judging, attacking another, right? And not just another, but guilt, and you will all be able to relate to this. Guilt is attacking yourself. I'm not good enough. I should feel bad. I'm not smart enough. I should feel bad. I'm not spiritual enough. I feel guilty that I'm not spiritual enough. I feel guilty that I haven't done the right thing. I feel guilty that that someone asked me to do something and I'm not doing it, right? We attack ourselves. We attack ourselves. It's huge. Say yes if that's true for you, that you attack yourself. This is the form of guilt, one of the biggest forms of guilt that you will ever experience, because someone can lay a guilt trip on you and you can respond to the guilt trip. But the guilt you lay on yourself is 500,000 500,000 times worse. Say yes if you can relate to that. So the guilty always condemn, and having done so, they will still condemn, linking the future to the past, as is the ego's law. The future to the past. Okay. Take a deep breath. So, in the past, something happened. In the past, people weren't nice to you. In the past, you were abused. In the past, you felt like you weren't worthy. In the past, you had trauma. So the ego will say the future is just like the past. So you better feel bad because your future is dim. It's dark because the past is going to be the future. Now, this is beautiful because he says this is the ego's law. This is the ego's law, right? So that's a big thing. That's a big, big, big thing. This is what we do all the time. Because I was unsuccessful in the job last year, I'm going to be unsuccessful. So I feel guilty that I was unsuccessful because I'm supposed to be more successful in the future. We all do it. We all do it. I had a failed relationship in the past, so I feel bad about that, and that's not a good thing. So I have to make sure that I have a successful relationship in the future. I'm watching this show right now. That sounds cheesy, but it's really good. Married at First Sight. But it is so interesting to watch these people. It's a reality show, but if you look at it a certain way, it's all these people trying to heal their past in a new relationship. Now, the therapists and the experts understand that, so they're trying to help them to understand that's not your truth. Your truth is something much deeper and much bigger. If you can open yourself up to the truth right now, then the guilt goes away, then the truth comes up. And the only thing that's real is love. And if the only thing's real is love, then you can be present to have a real, true, intimate relationship with another human being, if that makes sense. Who knew? Who knew you were going to hear about Married at First Sight? But it's true. Let's move on to paragraph 2. So top of 261, if you're there. Here we go. Release from guilt is the ego's whole undoing. Make no one fearful, for his guilt is yours, and by obeying your ego's harsh commandments, you bring its condemnation on yourself, and you will not escape the punishment of it that it offers those who obey it. I have to read that again. Release from guilt is the ego's whole undoing. This is huge. The only thing that is creating guilt in your life is the ego. That's it. It's the game. I always say, when you wake up, you understand the game that's been going on here. And the game that's going on here is that the ego is trying to keep you in the wheel of suffering, as the Buddha says. Keep you in that constant search of, I'm not good enough, something's wrong. Because if you knew that you are the light of the world, that you are a perfect child of God, the ego won't have a job. The ego will not have a job, because the ego is literally, he says in A Course in Miracles, do not be deceived. The ego is trying to kill you. Take a deep breath. And if you think about that for a moment, it is the truth. Because you know how I know it's the truth? Because everyone's searching to try to find their peace. Everyone's searching to try to find love. Everyone's searching, not everyone, but you're on a constant thing of trying to get somewhere. The truth is, there's nowhere to get. You already have God. You already have peace. But the ego is going to keep you in this vicious cycle forever. Listen, this weekend I put on Instagram, I said, the belief that there's a spiritual path is the thing that's going to keep you on a spiritual path. Oh, the ego loves that. The ego loves the spiritual path. Because it says that at some point over there, you're going to finally feel good. At some point over there, you're going to feel your connection with God. At some point over there, you're going to wake up. Well, there is no there. So you better feel guilty and stay in your guilt, because otherwise, if you don't stay in your guilt, the ego doesn't have a job. So, release from the guilt is the ego's whole undoing. We get it now. Make no one fearful, for his guilt is yours. Make no one fearful, for his guilt is yours. When we lay a guilt trip on somebody, we're making them fearful. Do you understand? You should be nicer. You're not good enough. You need to reach my standards. That is making someone feel guilty. That's making someone feel guilty. His guilt is yours if you say, oh, your standards need to be higher, or you need to be a better friend, and something's wrong with you, blah, 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 blah. That's your stuff you're projecting onto somebody else. That's what the ego's trying to do. Because everyone's got to live at a certain level in order for you to accept them. Oof. And think about what I just said when it comes to you. You have to live at a certain level before you can completely love and accept yourself. Strike home? Does that make sense? Make no one fearful, for his guilt is yours. And by obeying the ego's harsh commandments, you bring its condemnation onto yourself, and you will not escape the punishment it offers those who obey it. Let me say that in one sentence. Make no one fearful, for his guilt is yours. And by obeying the ego's harsh commandments, you bring its condemnation on yourself, and you will not escape the punishment it offers those who obey it. What you do to your brother, you're doing to yourself. And then you know the ego's in control of your life. The ego rewards fidelity to it. The ego rewards fidelity to it by keeping the guilt game going with pain. The ego rewards fidelity to the ego with pain. For faith in it, faith in the ego is pain. And faith can be rewarded only in terms of the belief in which the faith was placed. You have faith in this thing of giving guilt or receiving guilt for yourself. The reward is pain. All of us here can relate to that on some level because you feel like shit. When you feel like shit, it means that your fidelity is with the ego. It is not with your connection with God. Because the ego will exact a price that you can never pay. And the ego will exact a price that they can never pay. And so you're never going to get what you think you deserve. You're never going to get the payback. You're never going to get the love. You're never going to get the self-esteem you think that you should have because you feel guilty because you're not good enough and they're not good enough. The world's not good enough. It needs to change. They need to change. I need to change. Take a deep breath. And so what you're left with is pain. So let's look at that. Why are you left with pain? The pain is a feeling, and that feeling is pointing you in a direction, I'm off track, I'm off track, I'm off track. Something needs to be looked at here. As the Course in Miracles would say, you have to understand the problem before the problem can be solved. So that pain, that depression, that anxiety, that confusion is trying to help you. And so people are like, I don't want the pain, I don't want the anxiety, I don't want the depression. Well, guess what? That pain and that anxiety and that depression, not on a chronic level, is guiding you to see what's real, is guiding you to help you to see what's real and to identify the problem so that you then can move beyond it and let go of the guilt and become the truth of who you are, which is a perfect child of God. You're not a judgment machine. You're either a judgment machine that the ego has convinced you that you are, or you're the perfect child of God. You can't be both. You cannot be both. This is heavy. This is big. Take a deep breath. You can't be both. And think about how much work it is to be a judgment machine. You come to this work when you're done with being a judgment machine. Is it possible that even though I don't think I feel guilty and actually believe the problem is someone else, that I'm making myself feel guilty and it really isn't about them? Yes. The answer is yes. Of course it is. That's how the ego works. If I knew how, I would. Morgan, this is how you have to start doing it. You have to see the game. I had a long interaction with someone this morning on Instagram. And I don't usually do this, and it's very, very difficult to get what we're talking about here. Because the ego, guess what? Doesn't want you to get it. The ego does not want you to get what's going on here because it's so simple. It is so simple that it's going to keep you confused. It's going to keep you in that place of trying to get somewhere. There's nowhere to get. There's nowhere to get, like I said earlier, right? Okay, so let's go. There's no method to releasing guilt. I understand your question, but you have to wake up. You have to wake up to the game. When you wake up to the game, then guilt has no place in your life. That's how you wake up. And this is slowly helping you. This conversation right now, in this moment at 10:24 on Monday, August 16th, 2021, in this moment, you're starting to wake up.